Welcome, journalists, saboteurs, and monkeys, to episode 492 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 38th of October. Gotta call it October to keep the Mariah Carey away. 2023. Featuring the Fifth Doctor Adventures, The Perils of Nellie Bly, written by Sarah Ward and starring Peter Davison as the Doctor, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, Janet Fielding as Steven Jovenka, and George Watkins as Mark. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and what's the point of a so-called emergency pizza if there's still a $15.99 minimum? With me are color commentator Alex Fireheart
Hopefully I don't cough too much.
and technical director Mad Matt Winchell.
You had to break my legs before I let you touch my clogs.
Because hopefully you don't cough too much while you're doing the 5-minute summary.
Right?
I
Suddenly has
almost
a
asked
fit and then
if
we have to pause.
I almost asked if you were still up to it, but that would imply that I was offering, and I would need a third. I would need a third rewatch just to to get things in the right order.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thankfully this is only like a two-parter, so there wasn't a lot that I had to go into.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as last week, or last time rather, 2 weeks ago.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it is funny because I realized we went from a 7-parter to a 4, now a 2, and I think next time is a 2 as well. So
I think so.
Welcome to the Fifth Doctor era. Almost everything's a two-parter. With the oddball 4.
Hmm.
So how's everybody doing this week?
Thankfully I haven't been like I don't even know how I got sick. Like I just was feeling a bit off after getting home. Like I don't even know if it was directly after getting home from work. Um, and then seemingly had diarrhea for like 2 days, which that sucked. And I think that was related to like my dad had been encouraging me, oh, try and get some of this like there wasn't any Gatorade version of it, but it's like a powdery thing where like the idea is it's like helps you get back like electrolytes and shit.
Hmm. I
That
say
you lose
diarrhea
from
for
being
2 days.
active.
That's how people die of dehydration.
Yes, yeah. Like it probably wasn't like a full two, but like yeah, it took a while and a lot of like anti-diarrhea tablets to finally make that go away. And like it was like that evening and then like most of the next day. Um and it was just like, well, this fucking sucks. But yeah, like I haven't touched that like that uh powder stuff to add to drinks yet again, just in case that was what set it off. Like it might have just been something I ate and not that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like on the off chance it is, I might just have to stay away
Sounds
from
like
it.
it's less more for electrolytes and more for what's it for cleansing
That's because they did you
Well,
accidentally take a laxative?
or
no,
antioxidant,
no.
heavy
Um,
antioxidant.
no, like it's I forget what the brand was, but yeah, it's like specifically it was like, I mean, it was hard to find at first too, so that's what's really annoying if that is what set it off, because it was like they had it tucked in like right at the bottom under like all the Gatorade and Powerade and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it should be like the
Those
energy
kinds of
drink aisles.
drinks.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, weird.
Yeah. So it was just like, I mean, from what my mum's told me, those certain kinds of things for that could set that off in her too. So maybe that's like just something I got from her.
Yeah, it might be something you got
Or
biologically
and
that sets it off.
and it's weird because I've had stuff like that before and it's not done anything like that. So if it
Yeah, so it
was
might be a
this that set it
coincidence.
off, it could just be, or it could just be this particular brand doesn't agree with me. I don't know.
As a matter of fact, my
It's
Um,
like
energy.
it's more often something like if you ate at a restaurant you don't normally eat at, or
Mm.
hmm.
something.
But I
Yeah.
will say that my energy slash multivitamin also actually has antioxidants in it.
Ah.
The energy version does. Apparently, the caffeine free does not, which is interesting.
Yeah, like I was well enough to go to work on the Monday. Um, and I basically had it in my head that it's like if they asked me to stick around an extra hour, I am saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Because even at just a 4 hour shift, I was not going to be able to do it. But that being said, my pay when it comes through tonight is going to be better than it was last time anyway, because I ended up doing like within the fortnight that counts for me to get paid for what I'm getting paid for this week. I worked 3 5 hour shifts.
Mm.
So that'll be a decent increase. Um, we'll see how we go. But yeah, like the reason I got that stuff to like uh try and regain electrolytes and all that shit anyway was just because I had woken up 2 days in a row and had like muscle spasms in one of my legs.
Ooh.
So it was like,
Oh yeah, been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was
And
very
can I
like
say
I
also, with all due respect, ah!
it's like I downed like a ton of water too, so it was just
Yeah.
like, well, it's not dehydration that's setting it off. So like, what the fuck?
Is it aging?
It's aging plus heavy exercise. F my
Mm.
legs.
Well,
Listen
yeah,
to
it's
me
like
crack my
we're getting to
toes.
the it's the time of year in Australia where, at least where I live, summer kicked in October, really. But now that we're in November, it's definitely into summer. There's been a noticeable change. Temperatures are going up,
We
and
had a
it's
hell
like
of a
it's
cold snap
been
like a week or two ago, and all of a sudden it's kind of mellowed out
um
again.
Yep.
it's been like even working in a heavily air conditioned shopping center, it's been sweaty as hell. And it's like I've been sweating at work a hell of a lot more lately. So like, yeah, it's
I
just
felt
like
that this last
this is
summer, yeah.
great.
Every time I come home, like when I went to my current new job, like the first like month or so, every time I get home from work, I would always before leaving would fill up my usual multivitamin jug with just regular water from the tap. Get home, and by the time I got home, because walking or pedaling, it's very warm. Get home, just unscrew the cap off the jug again, splash over my head.
Yeah.
Make a small puddle that would disappear in the next hour.
Mm.
That and it was just faster and quicker than having to hop into the shower, turn everything on, and then turn everything off, and then try and
Yeah.
take care of it. Just like splash me now, shirt off,
Yeah.
splash me now.
Mm.
I'm out in the backyard and no one's gonna care.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for them.
Anything of interest?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're
All right, I was just checking.
ah.
So yeah, for me, by the way, last week I couldn't make it.
Mhm.
I was severely burned out as after literally walking around our grocery store dressed as Jason Voorhees.
Mm.
Like literally, I had everything, including my hatchet, uh, my little woodsman axe. Matter of fact, I even had to
Well,
leave it up
not
front at the.
everything. You didn't have a head on a shrine that I know of.
No, no, that's not exactly mobile there, Bill. But yeah, I had to even leave the axe at the front desk at one point because I got requested how to do carts. By the way, doing carts with a hockey mask and a complete overhead cover underneath it to hide your face is just so dandy. I would say though the only benefit that came out of it is I found out that I can see through the doors better when I have something darker over my face, so it blocks out the
Huh.
reflection.
I guess the benefit there is assuming your weather was at all like mine. That was when it was 30 degrees and not when it was 70.
Um, actually, yes, it was like high 30s, low 40s. So yeah, I was also in the winter coat, which felt very nice to go out for carts.
Mm-hmm.
Once I finally got my picture taken, thank God, but it was only like the last half hour. I then just took the jacket off, took the head cover off, and just sat there with my hockey mask and my hockey mask mom shirt and finished facing dairy. I had a few little ladies come into the store, will look at me pushing carts and go, "Oh, lovely." Other than that, we have started moving stuff, and the preparations are slowly beginning. That I'm going to take over what was my parents' bedroom as my current bedding.
Mm.
We've put a futon bed frame in there, and we just have to find the time to uncover, clean up, and then move the mattress for it into there, and then get the bedding on it, and then I'll actually start sleeping in there probably. So my bedroom will just become my office, and we'll get rid of the mattress in here.
Nice. Mm.
Yeah, and I'll start moving stuff in there. I want to move some things in there just to, like, have some personal stuff in there. But also I want to start, like, taking the DVD collection and going through it. See if there's any particular number of extras in DVDs, box sets, etc. that just repeat too much, that I can find some easy gray ground where I can go, these box sets can finally go, and the rest of them have all the ones I need. And I think I may have accidentally bought the Halloween 2018 film twice. So if I don't want to keep a loaner copy, I can finally get rid of one of those too, I believe. Excuse me. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think it just occurred to me again. I do believe I have copies of several Ninja Turtle movies.
Nice.
So Ninja Turtles DVDs being
I'm
gifted off to
assuming,
somebody.
knowing you, I assume you mean the OG Ninja Turtle movies and not the newer one, like the
The
newer animated ones.
the live action trilogy, plus I think I have an old copy of TMNT animated movie.
Okay.
Like the one that followed them eventually, that at least bare bones background mentioned some things. Like you can see the time capsule in one of the backgrounds, etc.
Okay.
But they don't mention a lot of it by name.
Mm.
But it was still released by New Line Cinema, so it was still technically in the timeline, even though it was fully animated. And the reason why I have multiple copies is because I just got a box set with the 3 live actions, that same animated movie, and the new Batman v Turtles movie. Because apparently that's canon now too. Got that. As some people may have noticed, I have a new microphone. Depends on who you're listening to, I suppose. It's noticeable to me, at least. I noticed because, especially with volume, I have to get very close. Otherwise, I start to sound a lot like this very quickly. Trying to think anything else that came in. Oh, the first 3 serials box set came in for Doctor Who.
Okay.
So I have an Unearthly Child. I've got it.
You have something iPlayer doesn't.
Mm-hmm. I has
which is an important advantage considering some of the news we'll be covering.
And I believe, if no one else has heard about it, OMG, the new Beatles song that hit the heartstrings.
I wasn't aware there were enough Beatles to make a song.
Well, the long story short is that they had at least 4 songs worth of tapes from Lennon before he died.
Okay.
One of them they already released, actually. So that was just like, oh, Well, happy accident. We had a backup, anyways.
So they Grand Moff Tarkined him.
Like I said, they already released that one, so they already had that
Okay.
one done previously. It just happened to be part of the collection. Two more of them he did recordings of, and the audio was clear enough that they could incorporate him into a proper song, and those songs came out really well. And then the last one, which was Now and Then, which is the one that just released, they could not separate his voice from the piano, and the piano kept overriding him.
Eh.
Fun fact, that was in 94, 95, I believe they were doing that. So they held on to it, but basically just got shoved in the cupboard until something could be done with it. And they had no clue when or where it would happen. Fast forward to last year, Peter Jackson's making a documentary about the Beatles. In his work on the documentary, he had to clean up a lot of audio. And in order to help make things clearer, he also had to take stuff that was also possibly mono and make it stereo. But in order to do that, he had to literally break down every layer of audio and make it its own sound layer, essentially. So he had to make an AI program that would allow him to clean this stuff up and be able to separate it, which finally allowed them to be able to take this last tape and be able to pull John Lennon out of it and get rid of the piano. To which Paul redid the piano bits. They kept Lennon and the new cleaned up Lennon audio. And they also, from 95, still had George's guitar work. So they were able to take everything that just happened to be there and finally got it all going with stuff from all four of them.
Okay.
And that's the latest song.
The funny thing about that is that just reminds me that, like, apparently the New Line Cinema logo was a bit janky when the Lord of the Rings movies were being made. So, like, either Peter Jackson got Weta Digital to make a new one, or they just cleaned it up and they were just like, here, have the cleaned up one so you don't have to use the old one anymore.
Mm.
I wonder why they suddenly started using a really nasty one for no reason. But yeah, that song tugs in the heartstrings because while it was obviously intended originally to be a love song, you could very easily read through the lines that John Lennon may have been actually talking about the band, and
Okay.
that he was missing the guys.
Mm. All right.
And this is before his death, like 3 years later.
Gotcha. All right. Tonight's show, we have got birthdays and news. It's been 2 weeks. Birthdays are not too bad, but there's quite a bit of news, and there probably will be every week from now through the end of November. I don't believe we have any geek talk. We did not last time. We do not. Um,
Kind of
and
covered
we
my
will
only
then
thing.
have our episode summary, our historical fact check. I have a page of notes, and then our review, final thoughts, and ratings. So we start with Alex with the birthdays.
Yep. So, going back to October on the 27th, we have Peter Bryant, who is an alternating story editor slash producer in for seasons 5 and 6. Would have been 100, but died in 2006 at the age of 82. On the 28th of October, we have two people. First up, Matt Smith. That was the 11th Doctor from 2010 to 2013. Turned 41. And also on the 28th of October, we have Ian Marter, who was Harry Sullivan in seasons 12 and 13. Would have been 79, but died in 1986 at the age of 42. On the 29th of October, we have Nina Toussaint White, who played Mel's Pond in Let's Kill Hitler, turned 38. Also on the 29th of October, we have Michael Jaston, who played the Valiard in Trial of a Time Lord, turned 88.
I originally wrote Trial of a Time Lord, and I deleted it and wrote season 23
I
to be more
mean,
consistent with everything
yeah,
else.
yeah. It's like either way, it's technically correct. So,
Mhm.
um, in going through now to November. On the 3rd of November, we have Richard Herndl, who was the Doctor in the Five Doctors. Would have been 113, but died in 1984 at the age of 73. On the 4th of November, we have Robin Moore, uh, who played June Turner in Canine, turned 52. And finally, on the 5th of November, we have Andrew Hayden Smith, who played Jake Simmons in Series 2, turned 40.
That's
Uh,
Ricky's friend, if you don't remember him.
yeah, yeah. So happy birthday to Peter, Matt, Ian, Nina, Michael, Richard, Robin, and Andrew. Surprisingly, no repeat names there.
Yep. All right, moving on to our episode news. The first thing we have is we finally have an official date for or official dates plural for the 60th anniversary specials on the BBC. First off will be the Star Beast on the 25th of November. So for those keeping track, that's after the anniversary. Then we will have Wild Blue Yonder a week later on the 2nd of December. And then The Giggle on the 9th of December. So, uh, nothing else new in that particular piece of news. But yeah, it's good to know when these specials are going to be. It allowed us to update our
Finally.
schedule and, for people to make sure that they are able to watch.
Hmm. It's funny because, like, I forget if it was even before they said this, I was almost wondering if they would do
Yep,
something
I
like
remember you
this, where it
mentioning
would,
that.
yeah, where it was like, well, it would only be 2 days later, so maybe they just want there to be like as little of a gap between these and the Christmas special as possible. So
And,
having
and I
like,
was initially thinking they would want them all done by the 23rd, but nope,
yeah,
they went the
same.
exact opposite direction.
Yeah.
Um, Although on that note, we did not save it as a news article, but they did do a premiere event for the Star Beast. So figures in Doctor Who have all and some members of the British press, I guess, have already seen it. So it's not that it's not done yet.
Hmm.
All right, moving
Yeah,
on.
I
So,
have to
oh,
assume
sorry, go
it's
ahead.
just a matter of have to assume it's just a matter of, well, we don't want to have it before it. We want to have it as close as we can to. And I think I would have brought up in text that like last time they got lucky where it just happened to be on a weekend already, where with for the
Mm.
50th, whereas this year it'd be on a weekday. So I guess they were just like, we'll do it on a weekend.
Yeah. Best bet at that point.
And the reason why I don't think that matters is related to our next article, and this it's not really a surprise, but it's good to have confirmation. So Disney Plus, who is the BBC's partner for this season and those coming forth, has officially announced that yes, the specials or the first episode of Doctor Who will be streaming on the 25th, which by all indications, it does seem like only the new things will be on Disney Plus. So you may
Yeah,
need.
I
It
think they
sounds like you will need both
clarified.
Disney Plus and HBO Max to watch the whole show.
Yeah, I think they clarified that before, where the deal was like basically everything from Russell's return onwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Well,
far, the deal does not include
yeah.
anything
A-
prior.
Actually, it's not even so. to watch all of Doctor Who in the US, you need 3 streaming services. You need
Mm-hmm.
BritBox to get the first 26 years,
Yep.
and
Mm.
I'm not actually sure if the TV movie's on there now that I say that. And then you need
Not
HBO
sure.
Max to get everything up until last year,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need Disney Plus to get everything new coming out.
Mm.
So
Whereas,
yeah, it's a much better deal in the UK.
mm, like even in Australia, like BritBox has all of classic, but it also has most of New Who as well. Um,
Lucky son of a gun.
and like there's another streaming service that I use that also has New Who on it, which I wonder if the idea is like when that runs out, they're just gonna keep it to BritBox, or if it's like worth enough that they're still gonna just like either renew it with that other
Mm-hmm.
service or give it back to Netflix or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But by the way, I just checked, and the TV movie is on BritBox, so
Oh.
it's not. It does not require a fourth streaming service.
Or having to like rent it on friggin' YouTube or something.
Yeah, or Prime.
Now with
All right.
Prime.
Moving from dates, we have some news about the content of the specials. Official Doctor Who. I think this looks like is it? Oh, it's a Facebook image. Shows and it shows what appears to be the world's first, or a mock-up of a prop of the world's first working television system, invented by Scottish inventor John Logie Baird. I probably mispronounced that because I do not speak Scots. Uh, I'm sure somebody we've had on the podcast at some point may speak Scots. I do not. Um, but it appears that this is in the Giggle. So we may remember the Giggle did have some like TV broadcast stuff going on. So it seems like this may be connected to that.
Somehow, yeah.
Um,
Well, actually, it looks like there's a shot that looks like it's outside of a like antique house or something. So it might be something that's in there.
yeah, that's true. We were wondering the connection between that building and the Toymaker. Um,
So it
Hmm.
might be a
and yeah,
cover.
so. Mhm. And then yeah, the rest of the article just kind of gives some historical background and such. Oh yeah, that's right. So that's also okay. So I didn't realize this. So the ventriloquist dummy that we saw in the trailer, that was part of that first broadcast that Baird uh, did as like a test. So it's very
Oh.
clearly related.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So that is it for uh, the 60th anniversary specials. Moving on to the 2023 Christmas special. We actually have a post, this Sun News from Disney Plus, indicating that the Christmas special will be named The Church on Ruby Road.
Hmm.
Which I don't, I mean, that knowing Doctor Who, that's probably a reference to something. But if so, I don't know to what.
Yeah.
And I believe I'd seen, yes, so it is confirmed that that will be airing on December 25th on Christmas Day. No matter how the BBC wants to start calling it a festive special, if you air it on Christmas Day, it's a Christmas special.
Yeah.
So that, so yeah, so we are getting some real news on these things. Moving on to a bit less concrete sort of news, we have Shudigatwa was seen filming on site in Cardiff on October 30th. And what was he filming? Well, it appears to be the 2024 Christmas special. Uh, Again, yeah, we're gonna just keep calling it a Christmas special. And director Alex Peli, I'm not sure if that some name was already confirmed, was seen on set. He seems to be directing that particular special.
Also, looks like we have a stunt double, and the coat from 2023 is back.
Hmm. When you say,
The coat,
oh, I
the
see.
brown leather coat.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, it says the Christmas 2023 code is back, which is okay. We haven't seen Christmas 2023, but sure.
We've seen Gatwa in that coat plenty of times at this point.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, fair. But all right, so yeah, so that's that news that they are filming the 2024 Christmas special.
mm-hmm.
Definitely seems to be speed running this Doctor Who gig.
Mm. Which I guess, yeah, as we discussed last time, like if the idea is that shoot he wants to be able to still do, I think it was mainly stage
Mostly
acting
stage, but if he has
Yeah,
other
and stuff
projects
like
in
that.
the wings, then yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously he wants to get it
yeah, it
done as
makes
quickly as
sense
possible,
to
so
get,
it doesn't inhibit
yeah.
his ability to finish it.
Yeah, it's like why I was ultimately not surprised that they filmed the 60th special so far in advance, because it's like David Tennant isn't exactly, you know, hard pressed to find work.
Hard pressed to
So
find work of any
right.
yeah.
kind. Even if it's not long term, I'm pretty sure he's
I mean,
still fairly
Mm.
busy.
that said, I mean, David Tennant could be filming like I don't know what's the like most prestige. Like he could be fucking filming an Avengers Justice League crossover with who's the most prestigious actor on screen right now? Um, is it Leo? I don't know. Like, but he could be like the top, the biggest movie of the century, and he'd be like,
Mm.
"Oh, what's this? Doctor Who wants me to take the day off and come by the set.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll charter
Mm.
a flight."
Yeah. I mean, I
Right.
definitely think on his end it would be more the studios being like, no, 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 we need you from here to here. So,
Hmm. Also seen filming for the 2024 Christmas special is this looks like it's pronounced Nicola Coughlin. Although I know British pronunciations can be different than USian, so that might be wrong. And Joelle Fry, we're seen filming Doctor Who in Cardiff. So Coughlin, well, okay,
It
so
might
she
also be
was,
pronounced Joel, but yeah.
yeah. Uh, oh, that's true. Yeah, Joelle is the more like Spanish, whereas Joel is commonly more, yeah, English. So Coughlin was on Bridgerton. She's credited as Barbie and Barbie. I think that's because like all of the cast were named Barbie. Um, those are the things I most recognize from her IMDb. So you might recognize her from those. Whereas Fry appeared in Our Flag Means Death, Game of Thrones, and the live action Cruella movie in 2021.
Mm.
So yeah, so kind of well known roles. It seems these are not new actors; they're probably more guest stars. Um,
I would joke, has anyone actually seen that Cruella movie? But everything else he's been a part of sounds like he's been a bit
I
bigger than that.
don't think there's anything else really of news in that article. It's just kind of images of the sets and stuff. All right, so moving on from that. So part of the 60th anniversary that's new is that the BBC will be broadcasting a colorized version of the Daleks,
Hmm.
which is the second Doctor Who story, or as you would believe by looking at iPlayer, the first Doctor Who story now. Um, So yeah, so
They just
of
never went
course
out
this
to those
is
sand dunes that they saw at the end of that episode, huh? Oh, actually, no, that episode doesn't exist. Yeah, so it'd just be suddenly there's here with people that they don't see eye to eye with all of a sudden with no backup story as
yep.
to why they're there. Thanks, Trabagum.
So it looks like it will be rescored. There's a new score by Mark Ayers.
Mm.
Um, and it'll be aired on the 23rd of November on BBC4. So technically, this is the real 60th anniversary special, and it will sit within. Well, this is kind of a spoiler for upcoming news: the Hooniverse, which we haven't talked about yet. Which also has the original, which yeah, also of course has the original. Let's see. Let's say who's colorizing it. Don't well maybe just well it's produced by Bad Wolf with BBC. I don't think they're known for colorizing, so I don't know if they
Well, it
needed a
might be.
special team for this or not. But
Well, if it is who I think it is, it's their usual go-to boy, my boy, Babel Color. Babel Color is
okay,
a YouTuber who got popular for colorizing very well,
ah,
colorizing some black and white Doctor Who for his own channel. And BBC literally picked him up and did
oh
colorizations of
nice.
Third Doctor episodes. He did better job than what they were doing.
Mm. Oh, here we go. Do you know his name?
I can't remember off the top of his head. What's the name?
So they say lead colorization artist is Richard Tipple and edited by Benjamin Cook.
I think one of them might be him. I have to.
Is it Babel like the Tower of Babel or like babbling?
I have to
I'm
look
asking
him
a
up real
dyslexic
quick.
person about spelling. That
Yeah,
might not help.
I could spell his name 20 different ways. Let me have a look.
Oh, it looks like his name is Stuart Humphreys, so that's neither of
No,
those
actually, yeah,
names.
never mind. So maybe they aren't bringing him in anymore. I know he's in the middle of a big project that he wants to do for his 60th.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
All right, next we move on to cast and crew news, which is Alex, assuming that their voice doesn't give out. Test number one.
uh, yeah. So, first off, it's been announced that a Russell Davies profile is coming to BBC One. Um, in that sense, I assume it's like a interview kind of thing. Didn't really get a chance to look this over before we started. Da-da-da-da.
They refer to it as a film, but I don't know if that
Hmm.
implies a certain length.
Yeah. Ah, yeah, okay. So he'll be on a documentary series, seemingly that's called Imagine. Uh, biggest names of world of art, film, music, literature, and dance. Alan Yentov or Yenlov gets close up with those shaping today's cultural world. So yeah, effectively, sit down interview by the sounds of that. Probably going over his uh career thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Quite the interesting career at that.
that said, the air dates have not been announced as of yet. So for all we know, this might. I mean, I would assume at this point it'd be airing after the specials come out. So for all we know, there might be like discussions of what went on behind the scenes there. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on when they filmed it, really, I guess.
Right.
Because they would have had to have filmed it when he actually had time to sit down for anywhere up to possibly an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I guess unless it's piecemeal from like whenever they could get him to come in for a couple of minutes to talk and just piece that together. with voiceover. In any case, moving on from that, next up we have that RTD has revealed plans for the third and fourth new series of Doctor Who. In the sense that the 2025 series, which will be series 15, at this rate, has commenced filming. Um, and that he is planning. Okay, as far as direct quotes go, he says, "I'm planning season 3 now. There's plans for season 4. Um, absolutely, who knows? Who knows? I'm not getting any younger." So yeah, essentially, he's trying to get as much as he can done this time around before he hands the reins over to
Right.
someone else.
They really
Um,
focus on the like the way the seasons are numbered, seemingly starting at one. I wonder if
hmm,
that's a Disney thing where they're just like, yeah, we're not going to put
possibly,
starting series 15 on Disney Plus.
yeah. Or if it's an internal thing of like season 1, season 2, 3, 4 of like his
To be fair, it's
current
season one,
run.
two, three, four of the Bad Wolf run because this is no longer BBC.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I was almost
Mm,
thinking. I was like, okay, RTD 123, and then RTD 123. That's not confusing at all. But yeah, sure. Technically, it's under a different production house. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, but yeah, like, I guess an excuse to bring it up, and I brought it up before. My hope generally is that the main thing we get out of RTD's current run is that he tries to build up a few more people as potential showrunners.
Properly this time and get them some
Um,
people with actual talent to get ready for it.
um, because like we really only got Moffat out of him as far as someone who directly took over. Because Chibnall they had to talk into doing it, and he didn't necessarily really want to do it.
And it shows.
Um, so it's one of those things of like have him build some people up and train them up to be prospective showrunners. I still think it'd just be a lot easier if they went back to the producer script editor system from Classic, but Whedon had to go and ruin that for modern television, didn't he? But in any case, moving on from that, uh, uh, we have news about how the BBC Children in Need will feature a Doctor Who scene with David Tennant. According to a BBC press release, 17th of November, live TV charity extravaganza known as BBC Children in Need will feature a special one-off Doctor Who scene starring Tennant as the 14th Doctor. So this will be the first Children in Need thing he'll have done since friggin' what, at the very least
Time
2000 and
Crash.
what, 7 or 8? Yeah, Time Crash
I
at
think
least,
it'll
yeah.
also be the first one that is actually a special one-off scene since then,
Mm.
because the rest are either out of character or were like, oh, here's a scene from the next episode. I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Um and there's like the closest you'd maybe get that I can think otherwise, and that might have been, I don't know if that was before or after in any way, but there was the thing he did, like I think it was a charity thing. It might not have been Children in Need, but he did a thing with oh, it might have been Red Nose Day, the thing he did with Catherine Tate.
But that was
Where
also
like
Maybe.
he
out of
was and
character.
wasn't. Yeah, he like was and wasn't the Doctor. Is just kind of an in joke.
Yeah.
Um and finally on the cast and crew news, we have RTD and like technically this would have come up before, but I think this is a bit more like a substantial response than previous. Uh, where he is just outright said, if I can find where the direct quote bit was.
Paragraph 3, it looks
Effectively,
like.
yeah, where he was generally he was asked if he would, or like the subject of him undoing stuff that Chibnall had come out with, because a lot of fans have been talking about whether he would or not. And Davies just direct quote said, let's stare that question right in the eye. I'm not going to unwrite my good friend Chris Chibnall's work on the Timeless Children. I'm not going to deny what he wrote. I'm going with it. It's absolutely fine. Now, to anyone who might be shocked by that, I would like to remind you that this is the same man who had basically people willing the Doctor back to youth and having a Jesus pose moment, and then had a Jesus pose moment later in the fucking hell, what was it? The Voyage of the Damned. So like, is it really shocking that someone who brought the show back and was very the Doctor is the most important person in the entire universe and could totally kick the shit out of any of these people, is it any surprise that this man would see the timeless child and go, damn it, why didn't I think of that? Like
Yeah,
that's the and like this is me putting like this is me speculating, but I could very much guarantee that the timeless child is something that RTD is kicking himself for not having come up with.
see, I wasn't
Maybe a
even. I
better
was.
version of it, I'm thinking, though, too.
I
Which,
I
again,
was
with
looking
him
like.
as control, he can actually now set into a decent motion, whereas Chibnall, I
Uh,
worry, would have ruined it.
mm, I'm kind of looking at like, even if he absolutely hated it, even if he was sitting at home like that's the worst Doctor episode the worst episode of Doctor Who I've ever seen, he's not going to take somebody who is still in the same industry as him, he's still on good
Mm,
terms with, he has worked with.
yeah.
He's not going to slap him in the face and piss on his shoes. That's just not the
Yeah.
kind of person he
True.
is.
That's just the thing,
Yeah.
too,
So
is that he's not going to just be like, yeah, that was absolute garbage. I don't know what he was thinking. I'm still buddies with him, but
Mm,
man. No,
right,
he's going to
like
be, because
mm.
you have to be in the industry, he's going to be very dogmatic about it. But I guarantee you he's still going to do something with it, and I pray that he does something to make it work, because that is at least something Davies is good at, is that he can take something that's kind of and just go, here's how we make it work, and throw it in a
Mm.
trajectory that you just go, oh yeah, there we go. That's a much better taste.
and
Yeah.
maybe add a pig alien or two to it.
Or maybe an alien that
I
farts or
mean,
burps this time.
it's um and the funny thing is also I'm going with it could also just mean I'm not undoing it. For all we know, he could just ignore it,
Yeah, that too.
but it's
For
a
all we know,
matter
he's
of
just going to ignore it,
like
and it's
it
no
just
longer part canon, just that
yeah,
he's just never going to bring it up.
and like it's just a matter of, well, I'm still treating it as canon. I'm just not gonna bring it up because it's not relevant. Um,
Air quotes.
but uh, we'll see. But again, this is something where I feel like he would be, unless his stance has changed from when he first was showrunner. I could see him being very, damn, why didn't I think of that? So
I could also see
it
him
does not
seeing that
shock
and
me.
go, I can actually write that into some sort of subplot for another villain.
Mm. But yeah, and there's also, I think we've also discussed the idea that that was also just generally another attempt at uh adding more mystery to the Doctor, so it doesn't really need answering anyway. So you can basically just leave
Mhm.
it if you really want. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
in
it's
any
an
case,
excuse to add new enemies of the Doctor popping out of the
mm,
woodwork.
yeah. Um. Uh. And finally, in this kind of related news, uh, there is a currently a mega bundle on Humble Bundle with a bunch of Doctor Who stuff in it. 36 items in total. is a mix of some audio dramas. I think most are Big Finish, but there might be one or two that are not. And otherwise both uh comic book stuff. Um,
There's a couple of
Seemingly there's
novellas.
a bunch of source books. Yeah, but it's generally either written work, whether that be comics or novels, and audio dramas and such, all bundled together. And if you pay, I would have to switch around the
Minimum $18,
It's
it says.
yeah,
thing.
18
Yeah,
US.
I was gonna say. I was
18
wondering what it
US, yeah.
was because of how that site works, I guess it's just automatically defaulting to my currency. So it's
Mm.
saying that for me I would have to pay 28 bucks 11 for all 36 items.
Which, I mean, even if you were to take that as like 30 bucks US, which it's less than that, the audio
Hmm.
dramas alone are worth more than that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And of course,
Like
I like.
for as
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, like for as much as it definitely feels like, especially because one of the comics um oh no, yeah, all the comics are also seemingly complete sets of stuff. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
one where it's volumes 1 to 7, one that's volume 1 to 3, another one that's volume 1 to 3. There are a couple volume ones, but I think those are either just a one-off or like
Probably.
maybe like that volume one is all there is.
And volume one would
Um,
mean like a trade paperback. It wouldn't mean like one
yeah,
issue.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess I just mean that like there's only the one volume anyway, so
Hmm.
it's not like you're missing anything else. Um, Either that or just the other volumes might be too new for them to be willing to put them in this. Um, but yeah, definitely seems like it's worth the money, especially because it is raising money for charity. It's part of the Children in Need, as far
Yep.
as I can tell. Yes. So
Yep.
yeah, if you want a bunch of comics, books, uh, and audio dramas,
And apparently
worth
a
looking
tabletop
into.
game, yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
For the price, it's not bad,
Right.
guaranteed with everything you're getting in the thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So this brings us on to new release news. So first off, the 60th anniversary specials are available to pre-order.
Hmm.
They're available on Steelbook, DVD, and Blu-ray. I don't think Steelbook is a format, but I guess that's just
It's a
another way.
special
It's another
box.
way to buy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so some exclusive content they have is scene breakdowns by each of the directors. There's behind the scenes for the different episodes. 14th Doctor reveal, which is just the scene probably isolated from the previous special.
Mm-hmm.
David and
Probably.
Catherine's flashbacks. I don't know if that could be archive footage or it could be like literally the two of them chatting about their history. Um, a video of a set tour with Yasmin Finney. Um, video diary with David Tennant's stand-in. So if you want to work in acting or you want to know more about behind the scenes, that would probably be interesting. Um, and yeah, those seem to be the main ones. So quite a bit of behind the scenes stuff. Does it say how? And of course, a lot of stuff that looks like it's just kind of like filler and trailers and whatnot. They don't give an exact
Pre-order
amount of.
here on Amazon. Oh,
Oh, you're looking at it on Amazon?
looking at it, the only one they have a price for is a DVD, and it's £13.49. So yeah, it's not even. It's the UK Amazon. It's not even regular Amazon.
Right, right. Yeah, the links the links on Doctor Who news are always to UK Amazon. And it's yeah. So they haven't unleashed. They haven't announced. It seems the length of the behind the scenes stuff, like how much time they take up. Um, but even still, if these prices are correct, that's pretty decent. Um, like $20 for a Blu-ray with 3 specials and a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. Unless Blu-ray prices have really gone down since the last thing I looked at, that's pretty decent. Or sorry, not $20, £20, which is $30, but still.
13 pounds.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Blu-ray. You're looking at the DVD. So yeah. All right. The next thing, and this is the big piece for these releases, is Tales of the TARDIS and the Hooniverse have launched. So, what the hell is the Hooniverse? The Hooniverse is the combination of all of the Doctor Who related shows through a portal on BBC iPlayer. Um, I'm guessing K9 is probably not part of that. None of us here are in the UK, so and we're not sponsored by a VPN, and therefore we can't log on to the Hooniverse and see all what is there. Um,
I hit
but
YouTube
all of the
eventually.
right, well, the Tales of the TARDIS, not the whole Hooniverse. But it's so it's a portal to access all of classic Who except for An Unearthly Child,
Oh,
all
that
of
part,
modern
yeah.
Who, all of the shows that aired on the BBC, and special features, which brings us to Tales of the TARDIS. So, in its complete form, Tales of the TARDIS is a series of serials that are edited into movies with extra scenes. And the extra scenes are kind of the highlight of this. These are basically returning companions and returning doctors who unite on what is referred to as a memory TARDIS to basically, reflect on their times. It's basically Easter eggs, right? It's saying, okay,
Yeah.
here's Stephen and Vicky coming back to the big screen to play their characters.
Mm-hmm.
Not the big screen, the regular size screen. To play their characters,
As
what's probably
Peter
one
would
last
also put it,
time.
as the first Doctor told him, the television screen, it's very small. You gotta do hand gestures really close to your face. Oh, that was this
So
like old clip I remember from an interview.
right. So Tales of the TARDIS is not because there's no Disney money in it. It's not currently planned to be released anywhere outside of BBC iPlayer. However, the extra scenes that were exclusive to this are at least as of now on YouTube. I can't promise
Hmm.
that the BBC won't take them down, but as of right now, they are. I'm not going to name any channels. I don't want to make it easy for the BBC to take them down.
To get rid of
But
things on
as of
us.
right now, you can find them. So the serials in question, and they
Ooh.
sort of alternate living doctor, non-living doctor, and so forth. There's Earth Shock, which has scenes with the Fifth Doctor and Tegan. There's the Mind Robber, which has scenes with Jamie and Zoe. Vengeance on Veros, which has scenes with the Sixth Doctor and Perry. Although he looks more like Colin Baker, he's not wearing a coat. The Three Doctors, which has scenes with Joe and Clyde Langer of all people, which makes sense because Joe appeared on the Sarah Jane Adventures. So
Mm-hmm.
there's Easter eggs and conversations about those characters. Then you have the Time Meddler with scenes with Vicky and Steven. And it wraps up with the Curse of Fenric, which has scenes with Seventh Doctor and Ace. Yeah, there was a funny story that Fraser was it Fraser Hines that shared that.
Mm.
Oh, is it? You mean the thing where like Matthew Waterhouse had seen
Oh,
Fraser
it was
Hines and
Matthew
Wendy
Waterhouse.
Cadbury?
That's who it was. Oh, that's right, because Fraser Hines did. Yeah, duh. Fraser Hines was there. Fraser Hines was one of the characters in the story. So yeah, um, Matthew Waterhouse just happened to be on vacation in Cardiff with his husband, I think, while they
Yeah.
were filming these Tales of the TARDIS scenes. So he happened to run across Fraser Hines and might have been Wendy
Oh, what? Yeah,
Padbury.
Wendy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he had assumed they were filming something for a special issue Gatwa. They had assumed he was there to film for Tales of the TARDIS. But yeah, so that he didn't share this until after Tales of the TARDIS went public because
Mm.
maybe BBC wouldn't have appreciated,
A
us
leak
knowing
early.
that
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah. Yeah.
companions were filming at the same time. But yeah, so that was a little anecdote on that.
Mm.
Okay, so that moves us on to our next piece. Do Time Lords get drunk? And other important questions about Doctor Who. So this is an ebook by Eddie Robson, or it might be pronounced Robeson. I know he's worked with Big Finish and other things. I'm pretty sure this is an independently published ebook. But let's see. So what is it about? So where is it? Oh, okay. Um, so Robson wrote a column in what? Does it say? Am I missing it? Am I reading too fast?
uh,
It doesn't. Okay, so he wrote a column, maybe for Doctor Who magazine. I'm honestly not sure. Called "The Big Ask" to accompany the Doctor Who figurine collection. So he's now collected those columns together, including some unpublished pieces, which has questions like uh, was UNIT really a secret organization and did the Doctor really build the TARDIS? Where were the Doctors time scooped from in the Five Doctors? Is the fugitive Doctor definitely a past Doctor? Things like that. So this is available on Kindle, and I don't know what the fuck a Kobo is, but it's available on something called Kobo, as well as Kindle, for £2.50. Um, and yeah, I'm assuming it's also available in the U.S. for U.S. prices. So that I spent more time on that than I should have because the information didn't follow a linear pathway. But
I'm sorry. I just you going. What the hell is a Kobo? Just
because I'm
reminds me of Brian Blessed just going. What is this device? It sounds like a winking machine.
It just says on Kindle and Kobo. I've never heard of a
Yeah.
fucking Kobo.
Clicking through to Kobo, it seems like it might be like a UK specific Kindle type
Uh,
deal,
Sure. Oh, what
or
they
just like a
Brexited from
store like
fucking
that.
they Brexited from fucking Kindle.
Like when I clicked through on the link to Kobo, it took me to a UK site. So
And I now need to watch my language because if you use profanity too many times in a few minutes, you're supposed to tell Twitch in advance because
well, you know what?
Twitch.
Twitch can piss off.
All
I can
right.
fucking say as much as how fucking what you fucking wanker.
Our last non-Big Finish release is a musical drama audio release called Children of the Circus. So this is reuniting the cast of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the Seventh Doctor story, as a limited edition CD, which will be coming out on December 14th, which is the 35th anniversary of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Let's. It's a brand new original musical play written by Kenton Hall and based on an idea by Barnaby Eaton Jones. Not reading all of this out loud. I'm just trying to see if there's any. Doesn't look like there's a synopsis other than the fact that it's bringing back the characters from that episode, and it is available to pre-order from auk.direct. Um,
Hmm.
no idea if they ship to the U.S., but It might be expensive
Limited
for the
time
US, hard
edition
to
CD
tell.
available. Pre-order now.
It's £19.99 and limited edition. You can expect that once the limited editions are all out, it shows up on eBay for twice the price,
Right.
if
At
not,
least.
or more. Yeah. And then our final bit of release news, we have from Big Finish, if that's not expected at this point. On October 25th was released Doctor Who Once and Future The Union, written by Matt Fitton and starring Paul McGann and Tom Baker. And then on November 2nd,
Oh, Caroline
was
Ford as
released
well.
Huh?
Caroline Ford also.
Oh, she was okay. She wasn't in the list of who was starring on the Big Finish site, but she's. Oh yeah, Carol Ann Ford and Alex Kingston are both in the episode. So
Hmm.
yes, star pack.
Nice.
And then on November 2nd was released Eighth Doctor Adventures Audacity, written by Tim Foley and Lisa McMullen, and starring Paul McGann again and Jay Griffiths. And judging by, if we go by the photo,
Paul's
I
a busy
imagine
man.
it's featuring Nick Briggs.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
that kind of goes without saying at this point.
Any robotic menaces on the cover? Oh, Nicholas is a busy man today.
And that is the end of our news, although we do have a rumor uh, as well.
Rumor mill, go.
Yep. Apparently there is a rumor going around. According to Nicola Methven and Mark Jeffries of the Mirror, an announcement that the missing 66 Doctor Who serial, The Celestial Toymaker, is set to be animated and will coincide with the Toymaker character's imminent return to TV. If I were them, I'd hold off. If this is legit. I mean, it's the Mirror, so you never know. The Mirror can be a bit dodgy
Mm-hmm.
when it
Reliable,
comes to
yeah.
this. But I don't know. If I'm them, I mean, it's funny. Knowing what I know about that story, is it really even worth reanimating? I mean, you're gonna have to edit some things anyway.
Yeah, there might be a select
Yeah.
like second or so of audio they might wanna, just kind
Yeah,
of remove out
yeah.
of
There's
there.
definitely gonna be an eeny meeny miny mo catch a tiger by the time. Well, there's gonna
Catch a
there's gonna have to be an
tiger
obvious
by the
edit.
toe.
Yeah, yeah.
I find it funny.
Either that, or they're gonna have to put a. I mean, they're probably gonna have to put a warning in front of it anyway to be like,
Mhm.
yeah, this was made in the '60s.
Well, I mean, the good thing about
Fair
animating
warning.
it is they can tone down some of the anti-Chinese racism.
Yeah,
They could definitely, yeah, in the animation they can definitely tone down
yeah,
some of the issues of this particular production.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
there is definitely a reason that bringing the character back for the 60th is just being referred to as the Toymaker.
mhm.
Um,
Um, I find it funny that the Mirror source says, for many fans, the Celestial Toymaker is one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever, and I
It's
guess
an
that's
interesting
true in the
story,
sense that
but
Doctor Who episodes are like Pokemon. Every one is somebody's favorite. But I don't think most people who have actually watched it rank it in the top half.
hmm,
It's an interesting episode for its time
yeah.
in terms of the ideas that it plays with. But then the second
hmm.
Doctor did the same story better, and then the third Doctor did the same story better, and so forth. So I don't know if that quote really
Well,
stands
it's
to
an
reason.
interesting first, if nothing else.
Yes.
Hmm. And it's one of those ones where, like, I mean, it's kind of funny because, like, the historical significance that it might otherwise have, it lost out to to the 10th planet because, like, apparently originally that story was going to be where the Doctor changed appearance. Because, like, Doctor Goes Invisible was going to come back as a different actor, but either they convinced Hartnell to stick around or Hartnell decided to stick around, so they just kept it. Which, in the long run, was better off because I don't know if you would have been able to finagle regeneration after doing it that way. Whereas with what they did with 10th Planet, that led to regeneration. So it was like, okay, now we've got a way to ride everyone out.
I mean, I'm in favor of animating it just for the sense that it's barely watchable in its current form.
Mm.
And I like the idea of all Doctor Who episodes being watchable.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I don't know if it necessarily is a something that needs to be on a pedestal, but it's
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, there are definitely times there's going to be a lot of people like I wonder where this Toymaker comes from that might go out and buy a
Yeah.
DVD or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think that's probably all we have to say about that.
Pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Which brings us
Oh,
to the summary, and I don't think you've had a coughing fit yet, so sounds like we're in good track for that.
Yep. So here we go. Are you ready?
um, I guess out of curiosity, once we're done with this, are we going straight into it, or was there a historical fact check?
Yes, oh yeah, it's crossed off down there. I mentioned it up at the beginning, but I have a
Oh,
full
yeah.
page of notes, and I don't know if you two have any notes, but I
Not
definitely have
really.
things to mention.
Mm. Yeah. Anyway, yep, I'm good to go.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, we open on the Doctor and the companions landing on the RMS Oceanic, where the TARDIS crew run into a woman named Nellie Bly, who tells them she is currently trying to beat the fictional record of making it around the world in 80 days. While still on the ship, we find out a woman named Marion Jones has been actively trying to sabotage Nellie's journey this whole time. With the sabotage on the ship extending to trying to stop the ship by bribing someone to drop the sea anchor, and also a man tying Tegan to the mast, assuming that she was Nellie as they'd swapped clothes. Despite the sabotage attempts, they managed to arrive in San Francisco, uh, relatively, I guess, on time ish to what she was hoping to arrive there by. Uh, though Nellie is then directed by Marion to the wrong train, with Mark managing to save her from an attack on said train because he was able to catch up to it. With the Doctor, Nissa, and Tegan managing to catch up to those two and get Nellie back to the proper train to get her back to New Jersey where she started. Uh, Marion Jones then makes one final attempt to sabotage the journey by trying to make the train derail. But Mark and the Doctor thwart the attempt, and Nellie manages to arrive safely in New Jersey, with Marion Jones being arrested. Either along the journey through to that, because we kind of skip around, or when they finally get there. But in any case, Nellie ultimately is said to arrive at the end of her journey 72 days, 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 14 seconds after she left. Nellie, having sussed out that the TARDIS crew weren't from the time period, ask if she is remembered in the future, with the Doctor reassuring her that she is. The Doctor then almost makes him stick around for the announcement of the winner of a contest to guess how long Nellie's journey would take, which he won, only for the TARDIS crew to quickly make their exit to prevent becoming a concrete part of this history. With us ending on the note that the Doctor left instructions that his winnings should be donated to the Society for the Advancement of Kindness to Monkeys. The end.
After the attempted threat to throw a monkey overboard for no darn good reasonable reason. You managed to do it in 2 minutes 39 seconds.
Yep. I was like, ultimately, there's not enough major stuff that I could very much skim. Because a lot of it's
That
just
sucker
talking.
right down to
But,
the bone marrow.
yeah.
Get through it
Benefits of it
quick.
being a pure historical.
More or less,
Yep,
yeah. And a short episode, too.
right in line with the
Mm.
Fifth Doctor having done the last real one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, historical fact check. Nellie Bly was a real person who did complete a speed run around the world from November 14, 1889 to January 25, 1890, and published a book about the trip around the world in 72 days. If this podcast made money, I probably would have bought that book and read it before we did the review,
Right.
but it doesn't.
Oh, well.
The So it's worth mentioning the previous record holder, George Francis Train, had completed a segmented run that took 80 days. So he spent 80 days traveling, but he also stopped like for 2 months in France and did other things. And he
Mm.
was the inspiration for Around the World in 80 Days, the fictional story.
Mm.
Mm.
After Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Byland's trips, Train then broke the record later the same year by completing the same speed run in 67 and a half days. And then in 1890, he did it in 60 days. Nellie Bly did buy a monkey for $3 in Singapore. I cannot find a credible source with the monkey's real name. There's a children's book based on the monkey that called him McGintley, but I don't know if they just made that up or what. So
Yeah.
the monkey was probably not called Horace if it was called anything.
Mm.
Either way, Nelly did have a monkey, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It is true that Elizabeth Byland of Cosmopolitan was traveling in the other direction at the same time. She was given incorrect information about missing her connection in England, and it is unknown whether this was a mistake or a lie. So they took a real
Yeah.
interesting fact and made it into part of the story.
Mm.
Byland completed her trip in 76 and a half days, returning to New York City on January 30, and also published a book about her trip called In 7 Stages, A Flying Trip Around the World. Uh, Nellie Bly is allegedly on record, and I say allegedly because I found what looked like it was like a mosaic of different newspaper articles, but they didn't say
Mm.
where they got this line from. She's allegedly quoted as saying that she refused to make it a race.
Ah.
So, if that's correct, she was basically like, I don't care what this other person's doing. I'm just doing my thing. They can
Mm.
race. She can race if she wants to, but there's no actual way to find who recorded that. Who is
Yeah.
saying that she said it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
Uh,
very easily could be someone just making shit up.
right.
Mm-hmm.
It
For all
could
we
be,
know.
and it could be from herself in her own book trying to make herself sound better. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
There have been several ships over the years named the RMS Oceanic, but it appears that the ship Nellie Bly sailed on was actually called the SS Oceanic. So they got it wrong in this.
Whoops.
Yeah,
However,
that
if
kind
it,
of threw me off because like
Mhm.
when I was even writing the summary, I was like, is it SS? And then I had to re-listen. And it was like, oh no, they call it RMS. And
Right.
I was thinking, wait, but if it's depending on where it's coming from or going to, it's like SS almost would have made more sense.
So it is coming from British occupied Hong Kong. So it
Mm.
could have been carrying mail and would have been then called an RMS. Uh, but at least I, I I'm not a naval expert, so Wikipedia was my
Mm.
source. They called it an SS.
Yeah.
But if they were carrying mail, they might have been called an RMS. But I feel like that's a big
Mm.
detail that you would have expected to be corrected on Wikipedia, if so.
Yeah.
It is true that Nellie Bly was delayed by weather in the Pacific, and that Pulitzer did charter a private train for her as a result. The Miss Nellie Bly special set speed records at the time. Oh, apparently I haven't moved my mouse enough and my screen went black. It said speed records at the time, traveling from San Francisco to Chicago in 69 hours. There's no record of her boarding the wrong train or any other sabotage, but if she had boarded the wrong train, there wasn't a real doctor to go and, pick her up.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
that's where artistic license fits in.
Yeah.
And then I had to put this last note because they made a comment about it. Guns were actually pretty rare in the Wild West. So no, for it to be authentic, there would not is not typically a shootout, Doctor. You should know this. Then again, look at the version of the Wild West the Doctor last went
Hmm.
to.
True.
Oh,
True.
as in a
People go with guns everywhere, and also lots of annoying singing.
um, I guess additionally, the one thing that I uh found out by virtue of listening to the cast interviews was that retroactively oh my god, blanking on names again. Janet Fielding realized that she had technically heard of Nellie Bly before because she had read something about the
Mm.
story that comes up in this where
The
she
asylum
yeah, the
story.
asylum story, yeah, where she got herself intentionally committed so she could see what the conditions were like apparently Janet Fielding realized, oh, that I had heard of. I had read about that somewhere and like research she was possibly doing
Mm-hmm.
for something. Um
She was like doing an
whereas
expose on what it's like in an asylum, essentially.
mm,
Which she did do before this, apparently. So,
mm,
oh yeah, and apparently the checkered coat is a real thing too.
Yep.
yeah.
Although it's funny that so it seems like the general consensus is that it was yellow, but because there were no color photographs of it, there's a lot of like people either not doing their research or just saying assuming we don't know what color it was. Because I
Mm.
could find images of all sorts of different colors, people cosplaying in black and white, which might be intentional because of black and white
Black and white
photographs.
photos, yeah.
But so it may have been yellow, it may not have been.
For all we know, it might have started yellow, but she was wearing it consistently for that long,
It might
even
have
with
gotten
maybe
bleached out in
washing
longer
it.
trips, yeah,
Yeah.
especially if she's constantly washing it, yeah.
And as they
Yeah.
mention in the interviews, like washing it at the time might have meant like dipping it in the ocean and then drying it off.
Yeah. So it's like,
And
how clean actually was
salt
it?
is not notoriously great for colors.
Yeah.
True. So she
Any
technically
other
did bleach it.
historical comment? All right, so that brings us to our review. Starting, what did we like? Starting with Matt.
What do we like? Well, honestly, after that historical check, I like the fact that at least most of what they mentioned is to some degree actually accurate.
Hmm.
They brought up some interesting points, and they didn't make it feel forced or hammered in.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Especially when you compare it to like the last major pure historical US set thing we covered, which as far as I can tell was the
Oh,
fucking
Rosa.
gunfighters. Oh,
Oh,
well, yeah, I mean like pure historical.
got you.
Which would have been the gunfighters, I think. So I don't think there's any like US based historical
Oh, of
pure
U.S. based,
historicals
yeah,
after that anyway.
not many.
Yeah, the closest they would get to that is like, I guess, like the Manhattan thing with the Daleks, which, yeah, that's not
That's
really a
definitely not a
historical.
pure historical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's edutainment, but it doesn't stink. Yay!
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number one thing.
Hmm.
On to Alex.
Yep. I would say the fact that like this is a story that knows what it is and is not trying to if this even makes any sense. Like this is a story that's not trying to be anything other than what it is. Like it's a pure historical. It knows it's a pure historical. It tries to have like the odd actiony moment and whatever. And it's like, okay, there's only two parts. Here's the story done. Like it's not trying to be like this overly like epic thing or anything. It's fairly like Tegan gets kidnapped. Nellie almost gets killed like twice,
At least
technically.
twice.
But it's like, we're not trying to make this like some big epic thing necessarily. This is a story that knows what it is. And for what it is, it's definitely one of the better pure historicals I've seen slash I mean, this will be the only one I've listened to so far, I think. Um, but definitely one of the better ones I've seen. I mean, it blows Black Orchid out of the water, but that's not very hard to do.
Wah, wah,
Um,
wah.
but yeah,
I don't even
definitely.
remember what happened in Black Orchid, which is not a ringing endorsement.
Well, yeah, like
They
basically
played
nothing.
cricket.
Yeah, like yeah. Black Orchid was a confused mess, whereas this knows what it's got. Like it's one of the benefits of this is a pure historical that picks a figure that isn't well known. So even if there is a little bit of revisionism to for the sake of historical fiction, like it doesn't matter as much because Nellie Bly is not as like massive a historical figure as some other ones that Doctor Who usually covers.
Mm-hmm.
Um to the point that is kind of even poignant they bring up in the interviews. It's like, she's worried that she'll be forgotten. And in hindsight, she kind of was. Like
Yeah.
in the grand scheme.
I mean, in the grand
Um
scheme of things, she got blown out of the water within about a year already, but
Mhm.
she was the first to do it
yeah.
and do it successfully, though, and before
Right.
anyone else. And matter of fact, the people that immediately followed her, the first person to immediately follow her actually failed to even beat her record, so
Mm,
Mhm.
is what it is. Some things happen.
yeah.
And yeah, if planes hadn't been invented shortly after, then her we might have remembered her a bit longer.
yeah.
If Zeppelins were still a thing. uh,
All right, on to me.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the best thing I can say about this is that I learned about an event in history which you don't usually hear. A Doctor Who historical is either not a specific event, it's just kind of like a slice of life with Doctor Who stuck in the middle
Yeah.
of it, or it's about something everybody knows, like you know the London. Well, London Fire wasn't a pure historical, but like the
Mm.
burning of Rome or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we know about those things, but like I had never heard of Nellie Bly. So it was
Mm.
really interesting listening to this and learning about this even before doing the fact check. It was,
Mm.
it's not often you can say that with Doctor Who, that you learned a true historical lesson that was interesting. So
Which is making me laugh because that was the whole fucking point of the show in the first place. As far as the historicals
well,
went,
to
but
be
they were
fair, if
usually
I
either
were
inaccurate or
yeah,
like whatever.
if I were of the target age, but even still, a lot of those were like slice of life. So like
Yeah, yeah,
you learned about Aztec culture, you learned who Marco Polo was, but you
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
learn like major Aztec history events or
Right.
like events in Marco Polo's life.
Mm.
All right, what do we dislike about the story, Matt?
Dislike. I guess the one thing that kind of takes me out of the story in general quite a bit is that Nellie seems to be completely oblivious to almost all the people trying to stop her, except for the few times she complains about it. Like, she seems oblivious to the fact that they're
Yeah.
literally out to, like, do her some possible bodily harm to make her slow down and stop.
Mm. Like, I think what makes that kind of worse is that there's actively a scene where she's being very, well, I guess she probably thinks she's being paranoid, but then it turns out that her suspicions are correct, that she is being sabotaged. But then later on, she's like blowing it off. It's like, oh yeah, no, whatever, it'll be fine. Or like
Yet
doesn't necessarily buy into it. So it's
the,
very
the
confusing.
the funniest thing with that was they were like, "Oh, they tricked you into getting onto the wrong train. Something's wrong. My luggage and champagne aren't here." Yeah, that's almost as important as the fact that the train's going in the wrong fucking direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're not gonna get to New York or anywhere in that direction on a train that's heading to LA.
Night
Yeah.
train to Mundo Fine.
Mm.
There's a reference for you. That's a deep dive. Oh,
uh
that's a terrible movie.
I mean, like, I could almost excuse her not knowing that she'd got on the wrong train in the sense of, like, or at least by not realizing which direction she was going in, if she hadn't, like, traveled there before to know, oh, this clearly isn't the correct direction.
Right.
Um, Especially, like, at this period in history, would she be making enough to travel this much without it being something like this, where she's trying to break a record, so she's probably getting funding.
Yeah, she's definitely probably getting funding in order to do it, especially to do it
Mm.
this fast.
Yeah. Um.
All right, Alex.
Um. Hmm.
Did I steal your thunder?
Ah. Well, no. It's like I have so few issues with this that
Hmm.
it's like, and not in a matter of this being like a perfect story, but just like wondering if there's uh stuff worth mentioning. I guess in a general sense, um, Marion's methods being so like ultimately easy to stop are a bit. I mean, like maybe like the whole putting her on the wrong train is just Nellie being a bit thick, but there's also just like if you really wanted her like to not reach there in time, yeah, this is 1890. You're not necessarily gonna have like a gun to pull out and shoot her, but like throw her off the ship or something. Like there's so many easier ways than like yes, drop the sea anchor so it delays her. And like I guess maybe the idea is she's not like well, I guess she does try to like run the train derail the train near the end, so
Well,
and like
she
clearly not
does
caring if
she
everyone
does
dies in the
specifically
process.
say, like, at least in her mind, the train
Mm.
derailing, the worst thing that's going to happen is a few people get bruised. So she's at
That's
least
not what
telling
train
herself she's not going to
derailings
hurt
do.
anyone.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess
Definitely not the most bloodthirsty Doctor Who villain we've ever had.
Also, not the most
mm.
competent either.
um
Literally, she's this close to just going, next time, Nilly, next time.
yeah. uh but yeah, like
Now I'm picturing this as an old fashioned serial with 15-minute episodes.
I mean that could probably work really for what this
Yeah.
is. Um but yeah, it's just one of those things I like the she's almost putting in some cases it almost feels like she's putting a bit much too too much thought into stuff where it's just like could have just chucked her overboard or you could have, actually made sure that, like, there's all these things she could have done that she doesn't think to do. And it's just like, it's because we've got to keep the story going, sure.
Hmm.
But it's like, I don't know. And it's a double-edged sword because it's still kind of a nitpick for me because, like, at the same time, considering the story that just happened before this, it's probably better that this is more lighthearted and we don't have like attempted murder every couple of minutes.
Fair, fair.
Because this is coming right after the Lost Resort,
Hmm.
where like we're dealing with grief and stuff, so them their lives not being in constant peril is probably for the better.
Speaking of this coming
Coming
right
right
after the
after.
Lost Resort, because I'm not sure if there's going to be another time to say it. I guess Mark doesn't look like a Cyberman.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Hmm.
That that
Yeah.
that would have
I was gonna
probably come
say,
up in
actually, I looked at the cover
conversation.
again, and I'm like, isn't that guy possibly Mark?
Hmm.
I'm not sure where you
Yeah,
got the idea that he's supposed to be a Cyberman.
because according
Hmm.
to his
Well, he brings
bio
up that
on
he's got
TARDIS,
a.
it said he was converted to a Cyberman.
He
But
must have been only partially converted, like those two that
yeah,
Hmm.
were during that Sixth Doctor episode.
you're right. In Attack of the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I almost thought because he's supposed to be Roman that this is going to be another Rory situation where like he's
Oh lordy, he's gonna die
uh
in a fire.
yeah. It's um
He's a plastic
because
figure now.
yeah. But yeah, I guess is the idea either like he must have just only been partially so he's still
Hmm.
there. But is otherwise effectively like a cyborg or an android or
Right.
something like that. Because he did go on about having a metal heart and all that shit, so
Yeah.
um it must just be that the process whatever process was never fully completed.
My brain just went sideways and went, you know what's missing? The sequence where he's chasing after the train. We need the $1 billion man sound. Na 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 na.
Yeah. So where are we?
I believe we're up to you
Is it
now
up
for
to
your least
me?
favorite. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's up to you, yeah.
So mine, and I know I often have things along these lines, so I'm curious if it affected anybody else. And it's that there are two women in the cast, right? Not counting the companions.
Mm.
There's I didn't write down her name. Fucking Marion Jones and Nellie Bly. And they're both doing a period accent, which is not their own real accent. And I feel like the end result is that they sound like they're doing an impression of the same voice. Um,
Slightly
which
hard
I
to
mean,
tell, but
Yeah.
yeah.
you could tell from context who's speaking, but I
Well, I
feel
could tell
like their
that
Mm.
voices are way too similar. As a
I could tell
result.
Miss Jones was a slightly lower registered though too. But
Mm.
yeah, I could see what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was thinking about it while listening because it was if this were Big Finish, they probably would have just tried to do a modern day American accent or would have just used a U.S. actor, but they would have used period costumes and really sold it that way. Whereas Big Finish,
Mm.
obviously, there's no costume.
Mm-hmm.
The best they're going to
Yeah.
do is an authentic 1800s accent, which obviously there's
Yeah.
not many people who from the 1890s around nowadays. So they're
Yeah.
probably doing an impression of some sort of movie or radio drama that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
recorded or something.
If they even
Um,
Yeah.
did anything of
Like
the sort to research it, yeah.
mhm.
I do remember joking after first listening to it. I forget when about, and maybe it was after my second that I brought it up in like the text chat that was like I legitimately would have thought that like if you'd have told me that Nellie Bly was like someone from the UK putting on an accent, I probably would have bought it. But it turned out no. She's a an actor from the US living in the UK.
Yeah,
Um,
Whack.
that was just putting on an old-timey accent for
right.
this. Because like I think you hear her, yeah, you hear a normal accent because I
In the
forget if she's
interviews,
still,
it's not the same accent.
yeah. I forget though she's still kind of putting on the accent a bit when she reads out the credits because I think she reads out the credits as well.
Mm,
But I forget if she's doing the Nellie Bly voice still or if it's a normal voice.
yeah, I don't remember.
Um, but yeah, that was kind of a funny thing where it's like because it's period accents, it's hard to gauge in some cases. Are some of these actors just from the UK putting on a this is clearly not their accent, so it's kind of affecting their acting a little bit? Or is it they because it's audio, they could easily get people from the US to do it because they just had to send audio across.
Hmm.
Um, but again, it's just doing a. I mean, some actors can make period accents sound natural, but not every actor can.
No.
So, and especially if they've got more practice with it, if they've been doing like
Hmm.
stage or musical stuff that's set in a period piece, as it's like period setting or etc. Um, but I feel like the accent thing is still like at first that was kind of a glaring issue for me, but then like the more times I listen to it, it's like dulled a
Yeah,
little,
and
and I'm like,
like I said,
it's fine.
mhm. And like I said, you can tell by context who's speaking. It really only threw me
Yeah,
off
yeah.
the first time. It would have
Mm,
been cool if they had done like a class thing, like if Nellie Bly keeps talking about, like it's very clear she's kind of bougie.
yeah.
Even Tegan makes several remarks about it. It would have been
Yeah.
cool if like Marion was more working class and had like a,
Mm,
more of a working class accent as a result. Because I mean,
mm.
there's definitely examples of voices of working class people that
Yeah,
could have been
yeah,
based off, and it would have been more different. But yeah, kind of like what you said. It's not I don't have any huge issues with this, but it's something that immediately stood out that I
yeah.
wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, favorite scenes, starting with Matt.
Favorite scene. Um. Oh, actually, that was kind of amusing. The TARDIS crew just land, start checking out the boat, and they're immediately like, "Oh, look at that! It's a crazy lady shouting at the rain. That's not gonna help, you know."
Yeah. Yeah, like I think she's trying to command the rain to stop. It won't work, trust me.
There's only certain groups I would trust to do that for me. Thank you.
And she's a little later than history than most people you would expect to see making commands of the rain.
Yeah.
Maybe that time in
Mm.
the mental health institution had an effect.
Mm.
A bit of a lasting effect.
Mm.
About a week later, she's shouting at a cloud.
All right, Alex.
Um, let's see. You know what? I kind of brought it up before, but just because it is kind of poignant in hindsight, the bit where Nellie does ask the doctor outright, like, "Am I remembered?"
Mm,
Because yeah, like ultimately, as was brought up before, it is kind of poignant in hindsight because yeah, ultimately she did
mm.
kind of fade into obscurity. So the
That
doctor
kind of felt like.
at
Sorry, go
least
ahead.
kind of yeah, so like the doctor kind of at least reassuring her that's like, no, 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 yeah, you live on, to like just to put her at ease is kind of he didn't necessarily like if he really wanted to, and there are probably some doctors who probably would have just been honest. And it's um, but and if she really wanted, she could try to remember that at the start of the story they had no clue who she was. But
Well, the
um,
doctor. I was actually surprised the doctor didn't comment on knowing her at the beginning, especially since
Hmm.
he knew the exact second she arrived in New York.
Yeah,
So
I think it's yeah, I think
I
it's
think
implied that like he went back into the TARDIS. Actually, no, yeah, there is like a throwaway
there's a couple
line where he
times where he
says he
went back in the
went back and
TARDIS.
looked her
Yeah.
up
mhm.
and looked her up. So,
Well, that and I kind of
um,
also figure that maybe it's the Time Lord filing cabinet in his brain, and he's slowly flipping through it and going, "Oh, that's
mm.
right."
Yeah, because yeah, I think that's like when because he's the one that brings up the thing about the asylum stay.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Mhm.
I think the implication is he went back into the TARDIS, looked her up, and then was like, and yeah, that might have been like a light bulb moment of, oh right, and then come
To
back
be
out.
fair,
Although,
either way works. That either he did finally do
yeah,
some research, or that, like I said, it does seem once in a while certain
yeah,
doctors in particular, once in a while just have that kind of moment of what, and then as they're going through the
yeah,
again mental filing cabinet, they just go, "Oh right,
yeah. Which
this is
to a
going
point,
on. Oh shoot."
yeah. Which I mean, to a point, it's always a bit nicer when the Doctor doesn't know literally everything. So there being historical figures that the Doctor isn't aware of or like can't immediately recall is kind of nice. Instead of just immediately, oh, I know exactly who you are and your entire life story and blah. Like, I guess the closer you get to now, it's like the Doctor's been around so damn long that yeah, that list is probably going to be shorter, but it is always kind of nice to have the
Not to
Doctor
mention
doesn't
certain
know
doctors, the filing
everything.
cabinet's a little more organized.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Paul's
Yeah,
doctor
that
in particular
that's.
is like that thing has been cleaned
Mm.
up 5 or 6
Mhm.
times.
I feel like that scene was a bit modern Who, which kind of stood out
Yeah.
because like I don't think H.G. Wells had anything like that, but you see scenes like that. I think Agatha Christie had a scene like that. Obviously, Vincent Van Gogh is
Mm.
the famous one.
Yeah.
Um, so I was, it almost feels out of place in Fifth Doctor for that. But then again, she's a journalist slash
Yeah.
novelist who made it a point to set a world record by beating a fictional character. It feels in
Yeah.
character for her to care about that sort of thing, so it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Especially because Tegan does flat out drop like, oh, I've been I've traveled around the world and beyond. So that line kind of stuck in her mind and
Right.
she's like, okay. Like the idea being a lot of other people probably would have just shrugged that off,
I mean,
but she's of the mind to not. Yeah,
Even
yeah.
Tegan's fashion kind of really stood out, and the way she talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
clothes. Also, the fact that they literally were talking about what century her outfit was from in front of her the
Yeah.
first time they met.
Yeah. So she's not as like willing to let that stuff slide as a lot of like regular people
Right.
probably
Yeah, I
would
mean,
be.
she's literally paid to pay attention to what people say
Yeah.
and figure out what they're not saying. So,
Mm.
modern journalists don't don't this is what you should be doing, not just copying and pasting off of another source.
But then it's not my opinion piece anymore.
So then it should be on to my favorite scene, huh?
Mm,
Yep.
yeah.
And it's hard because it feels like this is one of those very even stories, where there's not a lot that stands out as like it's of similar enough quality from start to finish that I have trouble picking a favorite. Like it's always easy to pick, okay, that one line is weird, but it's harder to pick in this kind of story to be like, okay, that's really a favorite scene or a favorite moment. Um, so I guess what stands out, it's relatively small, but I like Mark recognizing the knot that he had just seen the growler
Mm,
untie, and that's how he knew how to untie it and who had tied it.
right.
So I thought it's a very short moment, but I thought that was a good one. All right, least favorite scenes, Matt.
Um, you know what? It's more the fact that it's just disappointing that we didn't get to see it. The whole mention of the stealing of the stagecoach. We just suddenly jump ahead and they've got it already, and then they mentioned there was a gun shots and everything, and it's just like show
So you
don't
don't like that it
tell.
was tell not show, yeah.
Especially when it's something that could have been interesting for a few seconds.
Yeah. Almost wonder if that was like a cut for time thing, like maybe they were planning on
if,
having a little moment, but then it was like,
if
nah,
anything
this
else, there should
story's
have been at
Or
least
longer.
cut
one or two good character quips before that as that was happening.
cut
Hmm.
for pacing more than time, if anything. Like they might have
Maybe.
felt that
Yeah,
sequence
yeah.
was dragging. Yeah, because that's the
Hmm.
good thing about Big Finish. It's like they very rarely have to worry about how many minutes an episode is, but they do
Right.
have to worry about it dragging or whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, least favorite scene.
Um, hmm. I think. Hmm. God, I feel like I had one and then I lost it. Um, you know what? We kind of brought it up before. I think I will go with um Nellie being so easily tricked into getting on the train to LA. Because like again, she's like as we discussed before, she's like on the boat when she first meets them. She is so like in her head it probably she thinks it's a conspiracy theory that someone's trying to fuck with her, but turns out she's right. But then the closer she gets, the more like the more aloof she becomes to the point that yeah, she's just like willingly let off to the wrong train. And like you could almost like there's a bit where she's ignoring them on the boat as they're almost as like they're about to arrive in the harbor or wherever. But like that's like her being just like overwhelmed by the celebrity of it all. Hello, my adoring public.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're being taken away from your adoring public, you would think that the journalistic mind in you would be going, hang on a second.
Right.
This doesn't seem like the right train because that's the train that everyone's crowded around.
Had she heard them talking about Marion before, or did she only know about the Growler
Um,
tying up
I
Tegan?
think she was at least made aware of the person was somewhere around by the time they got off the boat for sure.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like
Like
They
she
would
was,
came up.
she
like
was,
would
she
she have
was with
known
them.
specifically to look out for a woman?
I believe
I don't
so.
think they brought. I don't think they brought up Marion Jones
Mm-hmm.
around her because even Mark didn't know who to look for.
Right,
Um,
right.
but it was a matter of she was there when they found Tegan tied to the mast.
And
So
that moment in particular, she really didn't seem. She was like, "Oh yeah, you got tied up for wearing my clothes. It's a good thing
yeah,
you weren't wearing your clothes." It's like if she wasn't wearing her clothes, and I hope I'm not. Oh yeah, I can't take Matt's already.
yeah,
Matt already went. Like you know, that seemed like really weird. Like she was just completely clueless as to why Tegan had been tied up,
mm,
or maybe in denial. I don't know, but she knew there
yeah.
was a race. So
Mm. Which I guess was that us transitioning into yours, or did you have a different
no, that
one?
was me adding on. But if you're done, I'll go and with the one I had
Yeah.
in mind. Okay, so mine was the Growler comes up to Tegan. Are you Nellie Bly? And she says like she's talking in an Australian accent, and she's using
Yeah.
Australian slang. And everyone knows Nellie Bly is, from the East Coast U.S. They're
Mm.
like, oh, you are Nellie Bly, are you? All right, then I'm going to tie you up. I'd be like, have you ever heard, like, you've been, you work on a ship. You've seen people from multiple countries, I'm sure. You
Yeah.
really think this is Nellie Bly? Like,
Mm.
he even mentioned, like, being better educated than half the people on the particular deck he worked. Like, he could read and they couldn't. So
Yeah.
it's, you really, like, were that, like, really?
I mean, I forget if it's that same guy that said he could. That said he was the one that could read.
It was.
But yeah, it was. It is very like. How can you not tell by the voice that it's not her? Like, even if he'd never personally, because he's always working down below or whatever. Like, even if he's never heard Nellie Bly's voice specifically, how would you not immediately realize
Like,
that?
she's not
I mean,
American.
yeah.
Like,
Like, he wouldn't know that she's Australian because it's 1890. Australia isn't
I
even
was
a formal country yet. Like,
okay. I didn't
'cause-
look that part up. I would be like,
yeah,
but he like
Australia
he drives
technically
by.
formed in 1901.
I
So,
guess I don't know if the Hong Kong to San Francisco ship would actually go
mm,
anywhere near Australia, but I figured
yeah,
yeah, even if he thought she was English, which I'm sure is a
mm,
well, I guess technically she would have been considered at the time.
yeah,
Um, that still doesn't sound like Nelly.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
it does not sound like a New Yorker.
yeah. So it is very like, and she's not trying to disguise her voice at all either. So yeah,
Right.
like even if he couldn't place the accent, it obviously isn't a US one.
Mm.
Mm. All right. So I guess ratings.
Yep.
Well, final thoughts.
No final thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Final. Sorry, I was distracted because that reminded me of a question I had, and because at the time I was wondering if it was an anachronism that they were calling San Francisco Frisco. But they definitely the nickname was already around in 1876,
Mm.
so it's
Yeah.
definitely not unusual to call it Frisco.
Ain't
I have no
unusual.
I have no idea when Australian independence was, and I didn't realize I didn't know that. 1901.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
like yeah, we didn't formally become a recognized country
Or are you like
until
Canada, where you're
as
technically
far as
not
colonial
independent
country.
because you
Oh
still
no,
have
we're
like?
like yeah,
Oh,
we are still part of the Commonwealth,
I was like,
or the British
I was gonna
Commonwealth.
say, is the king still the Queen of Australia? Like, is he?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They actually,
Like
yeah,
yeah,
they did have
it's like
the guys show up with
yeah,
bells at
with
certain
here in
places in Australia when the transition to
Mhm.
king came.
yeah, yeah, like yeah, like Canada, we effectively there's the prime minister, and then technically, uh, the British monarch is above that.
So
And
just
it's
like Scotland, Australia and Canada are not countries, is what you're saying.
well, the countries were just not
If you
sovereign
if you
nations
worship
or whatever
if
the
you
term
worship
is.
the King of England, then you're part of England and therefore not a country.
Well, again, yeah, it's a thing of like
Go ahead,
we're part
Scottish.
of the
Fill up the
British
comments.
Commonwealth. But yeah, I forget
Final
what the thing is. And
thoughts.
of course, a lot of people just don't care about it. But yeah, could go on about that for hours. Um,
All right, ready for final thoughts?
Final
yeah.
thoughts. Yes.
Alrighty. Final thoughts. I have brought up some negatives about this story, but I will say that they are like the most poignant negatives I can think of, and to be fair, they're very minuscule. The story is honestly pretty decent. This is actually a generally decently done historical piece. Um, Again, not all the facts are right, but at least compared to some of the other ones we've done, they got a lot more right than they did wrong.
Yep.
Um, and they at least found some decent ways to drop those little pointers in without it again feeling like it's a forced hammer job. Not smacking the listener over the head with a sledgehammer every 5 minutes. Heaven forbid. Entertainment with our knowledge? um, so that and the cast is generally pretty good for the most part, and at least they keep things interesting, and the story does not lag. They definitely for sure cut for time to just keep it moving smoothly and very quickly. So honestly, pretty solid story all around as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Alex.
Ah, muted there because I thought I had to sneeze, but it didn't
Ah,
come out. But anyway, oh yeah, like this is one of those stories that for me is very like, did it blow me away? No, but that by that same token, I didn't think it was either bad or boring. Like it's one of those definitions of good, not great. It's solid, the acting's good. Like yeah, the period accents, like the first time through anyway, the period US accents were a bit ah. But then like the more I listen to it, I'm like, they're fine.
It's good,
Um
but it's a time lash.
um but yeah, it was,
funny because
it's
I
it's
mentioned
one of
Time Lash
those
earlier.
uh um but yeah, it's a very, solid story. Again, like it knows it's only two parts. It, you know, does what it wants to do and then gets out. It's not over, it doesn't feel overly long. Um yeah, like I forget exactly how long the story is because I couldn't really find a listing for it and it was hard to tell, like because of how this because of how the track listing works for the story. It's like doing the math to figure out how many minutes total the story is. So I forget if it's like 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever, but
This story was like
it
50
doesn't
something
feel like it.
minutes.
Oh yeah, so there you go. Like just
It's
under
just
an
under an
hour.
hour, yeah.
Yeah. And like, you know, for that, there are things you can watch that are about that length that feel like a slog to get through. And this did
some
not.
there's some
Uh,
1940s movies I should show you that'll feel like they're longer. You feel like you're aging in rapid speed.
oh yeah. Like, and this definitely is like it's making use of the time it's got. The pacing is good. It's in and out. Like, would I necessarily go out of my way to listen to this again? I don't know, maybe not. But I also listened to this like 3 times, like without feeling like not like with Last Resort where I was like, I really want to listen to this again. But it was like I listened to it once and then again because I was like, well, I've got to do the summary, so I should probably get this like really familiar in my head. But it didn't feel like a chore to re-listen to,
Hmm.
which is always a benefit. Yeah, I would definitely say, if you've got an hour to kill, check this out. It is definitely worth a listen. And like again, the benefit is that it's about an hour, so uh with this, especially compared to some of the stories we've done recently, it's not as much of a time sink.
Is that the end of yours?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say that this it was a pretty short story, and I think it held to a pretty high quality of a pretty high standard throughout. It might, I don't know if it's easier or harder to do that when you don't have, there's no robots, there's no lasers, there's no like sci-fi sound effects. But on the other hand, that means that all of the sound effects that you do have to be realistic ones that people, might have actually heard in their lives. So I don't know if that's easier or harder. Um, had a few, minor comments, but I don't think any of them like seriously detracted from the overall quality of the story. Um, it doesn't hit that super high of a 5.0. But it's definitely a pretty good story, and yeah, I would recommend. I mean, I would probably recommend this over most pure historicals in Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have to, go through them and see, what the best one of those is. But yeah, there aren't many pure historicals, if any, that are better than this. So that's already, flying colors for it. All right, ratings.
Hmm. I was worried about ratings, and honestly, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's. I'll agree. It's definitely not a 5.0. It's not. It didn't have like a lot of thrills or bells or whistles out of the usual Doctor Who, but it was again by no means bad. I'm going to have to say it's at least a 4.5.
All right, 4.5. Alex.
Um. Oh,
Alex
I
is
was
looking up
trying to.
what they rated Time Lash.
Better, worse, better,
um,
worse.
I think I think for this it was a matter for me of how like willing am I giving yeah how willing am I to give it a score above a certain mark because it's one of those stories where it's good, it's solid, but it doesn't wow me. So it's like how high can I justifiably go? And I'm thinking that I can't go higher than a 4.
Well, then you are the Debbie Downer for this week, because I am going to be a 4.5. So we have two 4.5s and a 4.0, giving us a total of 4.33.
I mean, not bad at all.
Hmm.
Right. So that is on par with Destiny of the Doctor Shadow of Death, Destiny of the Doctor Babelsphere. It is not as good as Ninth Doctor Planet of the End, Destiny of the Doctor Smoke and Mirrors, or The Judgment of Iskar. And it is better than Storm Warning. I don't know if we would want to count Shada as an audio drama. Oh, yeah, it's
Kinda,
technically
sorta.
done by Big Finish. Shada as. um, or Susan's War Sphere of Influence. Oh, I didn't give a number, did I? So that would put it as number 114
Hmm.
out of 451 things reviewed.
Alrighty.
And that's all we have to say about the Perils of Nellie Bly. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's episode if you've watched it. Don't forget to like the video if you've listened this far. Subscribe on YouTube to get our exports every episode, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time, we continue to look at Scribe Award nominated Fifth Doctor stories with A Nightmare of the Daleks, Fifth Doctor Adventures, written by Martin Waits and starring Peter Davison as the Doctor, Sarah Sutton as Nissa, Janet Fielding as Tegan Jovenka, and George Watkins as Mark. We'll see you then.
Have a good evening.